Hi, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and this is video 4 of the Kodiak backpack. This is a kit that's available through Tandy Leather. It's produced by us here at Maker's Leather Supply and brought to you by them. Really cool backpack. If you haven't been following along with the build, it's going to look roughly like this when it's done. This one is a little bit different, got some different colors to it and stuff because this was the prototype one that was made first. But anyway, cool backpack. I've been carrying it around for a while. I really like it. In videos 1 through 3, we've gotten all of our pieces prepared for our final assembly, and we've started assembling some things. In video 3, we basically put the entire front panel together. There it is. And now we are at video 4, which is when we will actually attach the front to the back, to the middle, to the straps, to the, you name it. All right. So, all that being said, we're going to start with the back panel. I'm going to bring the camera down so you can see it. There it is. So what I've got here is the whole back panel of the backpack. Earlier in one of the other videos, we rolled and sewed this edge down, and now we are going to add to this edge, or add to this panel, this last little piece that we have. It's a strip that's the same width as the panel. What it's going to do is it's going to hide the ends of my backpack straps and handle and even the flap that comes over the bag. It's all going to be hidden underneath this. But first, we need to sew it onto the actual the back piece here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of 1/4 inch double-sided tape to hold it on for me while I get ready to sew it. Alright, now this piece is only skived on the 2 ends. So I'm going to take and just lay this double-sided tape across here. And I think all my scissors are spread out around the sewing machine, so I'll grab my last reserve pair here. Now I'm officially out of scissors. Alright, so what I'm going to do is this piece, where I put the tape, is actually going to be away from me, which is down toward, facing the bottom of the bag. And I'm going to put it about 3/4 of an inch from that top folded over lip right there. Okay, and I just want to make sure it's nice and straight and everything, and I'll tape it down. And then we're going to sew that one line and that one line only. Okay. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to stick it down. Make sure it stays straight while I stick it down. This leather's nice and it stretches well to do, corners and turn bags and things, but sometimes if you're trying to stick something straight, that can be a problem because it can wiggle on you a little bit. Check it here and make sure it's straighten it up just a tiny bit here. There we go. Alright, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm just going to sew right along this bottom edge of this. Okay? I'm not going to bother moving the camera over. It's just one little sew line. It's going to stretch from this side to this side, and it'll be back stitched on both ends, and that's it. And then we'll get to putting the actual gusset parts of the bag to the front and the back. Alright, so I went over to the sewing machine and I just sewed that bottom line right there to the bag back there. Now we are going to sew the gussets onto the bag. For some reason I feel like sewing the back to the gusset is going to be easier first and then the front. And to be perfectly honest, I've not done it the opposite way to know if my theory is correct, but it works that way, so I'm going to continue doing it that way. Alright, but we got a couple more things we can worry about before we do that. Here's our entire gusset piece that we sewed together in a previous video. I will tell you this, it's easier to put our D-ring and our snap hook on these before that whole gusset is sewn together. So we're going to go ahead and do that right quick. So take another scrap of my my strap leather here, and I'm going to cut off about 2.5 inches of it, and I'm going to do that twice. Cutting board's getting worn out. Stuff isn't cutting all the way through like it ought to. I've had this cutting board about 16 years now, so it's about time to retire and get a new one. Okay, now how this works is, let me find my snap hook and my D-ring that are going to go in it. There they are. There's my D-ring that's going to go on one side of the bag, and my snap hook that'll go on the other. It doesn't really matter which side each of them go on. If you want to put them on a particular side, you can. I just kind of put them on. This piece of leather is a little bit too thick. You can use a skiver and thin it down. If you've got a splitter, you can use a splitter to do it. But it's just a little bit too thick to do what we need to do, which is to fold it in half, wrapped around one of these, and shoved up inside of that little piece. So I'm going to thin these down real quick. Alright, and then I'm also going to skive the ends of them just a little bit, so it'll just kind of reduce the bulk. Alright, it's not a lot at all. I'm just skiving the very tips of them down. And this is where we're also going to learn how to set a couple of these brass rivets that came with our kit. Brass rivets and copper rivets are the same, other than I really like the brass ones because they look cool to me. So if you've set copper rivets, then you might as well have set brass rivets. They're the same kind of concept. Now when I do this, I like to have my little snap hook where it's facing out on the backpack. You can turn it over and face it in, and if you've got your keys on it or something, that would actually make them a little bit more secure, that someone would have a harder time trying to lift them off your bag. But I like it out for the ease of just being able to slap those keys or whatever onto it and do it that way. To be perfectly honest, what normally hangs off of mine is my little bitty flash drive. That's usually what's hanging right here, because that way I don't lose the dang thing. So I'm going to take, and just like what we did with the straps earlier, I'm going to kind of stretch this out and get it ready for that thing to fit up under there, because it does have some tight tolerances to it, and I don't want to, because I don't want it to be loose. And I'm just going to take and push it up under there. I'll push it as far as I can get it until it reaches the top, and there it sits. Looks mighty pretty. I'm going to grab a hole punch. The size of the hole punch doesn't necessarily matter, but what we're going to be doing with it is putting the brass rivet through it. Let me find... So the brass rivets look like this. Okay, it's a post with a big end on one side and then a little washer. So I just need a hole punch that's going to allow that brass rivet to go through. This one actually is a tiny bit too big, so I'll grab a little bit smaller one. I'm going to take it and put it right in square in the middle of that piece and knock it all the way to the cutting board. Okay, now here's how we set these rivets. I push that brass rivet through from the finished side to the back side. And there you can see it poking through right there. All right. Set this on my rock because my cutting board won't handle it. And then this is a rivet setter. They come in all kinds of different shapes and forms. This is an old Tandy one that they used to have when they had the Al Stolman brand lineup. I don't think they have these this particular model anymore. It actually came in a set of 3 different sizes, and it was like 9 pieces total. But anyway, all it is a real heavy rod with a hole drilled in the middle of it. So I put that over. I put the washer on the rivet there. I put the rivet setter over that, and then I hit it down good and hard. Okay, and I want to get it all the way to the base of that sucker. And then I've got 2 tools that I need. One of them is going to be any kind of a heavy-duty cutter. Heavy-duty wire cutters or side cutters, something like that will work. If you've even got a Dremel, you could cut it off with a cutting tool there. This is what I've started using. I just got this pair because I had to share. When we built this office over here, I had to get a few new tools because I left some over there at the storefront for folks to use. So anyway, a word of caution when cutting these rivets. It takes a lot of force to cut them. That's the one advantage of the copper rivets over the brass, is because they're so much easier to cut. And when it finally does cut, that sucker's going to shoot across the room somewhere. So close your eyes, put eye protection on, something. Make sure that you're safe when that thing goes flying. I don't even know where it went. Oh, there it is. Yesterday, my son was helping me hold a piece, and I was doing this. I made him cover his eyes, and when it cut, it hit the wall pretty dang hard. And he was like, "What in the world is that?" That's the reason you covered your eyes, son. Okay, now most of the cutters, or most of the rivet setters have another piece that's like domed. Not domed up, but domed down, like concave, not convex. Okay, and you would put that on here and you would dome out this little stud that's left right here. I personally don't like the little doming part because I'm pretty decent with a ball peen hammer. So I've got my ball peen hammer and I'm just gonna beat that post up, okay? And the idea is to mushroom out that post so that there's no way that washer could ever come off of it. I love these style of rivets because if you set them right, they'll never fail. This backpack will rot in 200 years and that rivet's still going to be strong. Alright, once I've done that, I'll run my finger over it. And if it feels sharp or catches my finger or anything like that, I'm going to keep hammering on it until it's not. Because you don't want to be reaching in your bag one day and scratch up your arm or your computer or something like that on this thing. And then I turn the hammer over, I use the flat side, and I just kind of finalize it. Alright, wipe all the brass residue off, and there we have a beautifully set piece. Alrighty, it looks crooked because it's just setting crooked on the thing. There we go. Now it's not. So there it should be. Now, I have to do the exact same thing on the other side with my D-ring. Okay? Not going to make you follow through all the steps. It's exactly the same thing, except it's holding a D-ring instead of that snap hook there. If you wanted to put another snap hook on it, that's a Tandy item. You can go get one and put that on it. Or if you wanted D-rings on both sides, you could do it that way. If you wanted to put something else on it, you could do it that way. But I like these handy little things to just hang stuff off the outside of the bag for easy access. So I'm going to pause the video. I'll insert this one and do the exact same thing with it. When I come back, we'll start putting the gusset to the back of the bag. All right, we are back. So I inserted the D-ring in on the opposite side of the snap hook, and they both look good. I'm very excited that they went in so well. I absolutely love the brass hardware. I'm just a huge fan of brass hardware. I don't use anything else anymore. Like, no joke, I have changed my leather on a project just to make sure that it went with brass hardware because I didn't want to use nickel or anything else. So, love it. All right, now we've got one more little piece to prep. Well, technically there's two pieces, but they're two of the same pieces. And they're these little triangles that we did the other day when we skived. All right. And these are going to be the pieces. They'll be right down here on the backpack. They'll be holding the straps that come down. Okay. Now we skived the short ends of the triangle. Now what we're going to do though is we're going to fold that little triangle in half, perfectly in half, and on the folded side we're going to snip off about 1 inch. We don't need it. And then we have this. Okay? There's what it looks like. Then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other piece. So here we go. Fold it over. Folded side, the tip of the triangle there, or the edge of the triangle there, about 1 inch. Okay? And when we are building the bag, these are going to go like this. I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape right there. Let me go ahead and do it while we talk here. There it is. My tape roll is getting so small that I can't find it anymore, so I'm going to have to get a new tape roll soon. Alright, so I'm going to put a little piece of tape right there. And I'll fold this piece in half and tape it to itself. And then I'm going to tape it to the back of the bag. And again, when we made this, we left a lot of seam clearance here. Okay, so when we put this sucker right up here on the edge of this, we're going to sew it way in here, because I would rather have lots of seam clearance than when I sew this thing and I'm trying to be out here on the edge, I miss a layer, because that's just terrible. So that's what we're going to do. Now, as far as the placement on where I put these, they're going to go just like this, where, you know, they're facing up towards the opening here is facing up towards the opposite corner, and right where that corner comes back into a straight line, that's where I put the bottom of it. Okay, put another little piece of tape on there, and what I'm going to do is put tape on both sides of it so that it sticks both to the back of the bag and to the gusset that we're going to apply to the back of the bag. I'm going to put this tape right on the very edge, because like I said, when I sew way on the inside, then you'll never have to see that tape. We don't like to see tape. Okay. So there we go. Put this one right chaw. We'll just leave the white paper on that one for now, but we're going to do all that same stuff to the other little piece here. And then this one will go on the opposite side of the bag. So they'll kind of face each other, I guess you could say. Alright, so pull the tape off the correct side of this as soon as one of my fingernails grabs it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a ruler, even though I know that this is right at the bottom of that curve. I'm going to put a ruler across the bottom of it just to make sure that they're the same height on both sides, because we don't want our bag to be uneven on our backs. That would be terrible. And it would look stupid. We don't want to look stupid. This is going to be a pretty badass bag. We want to look like badasses wearing it. Alright, so there goes that. Those two pieces are now stuck, and so we're going to take our gusset piece now. Okay, this big long gusset that we've been working on, and we are going to stick it on the back of the bag. So the first thing we have to do is find the center of it. I'm going to take it, I'm going to line up both the ends of it here on one hand, and I'm going to find that middle right there. Now, there's a curved side of this and there's a flat side of this. The flat side of it is what's going to go against the back panel of the bag. The curved side of it will go against the front panel of the bag. Okay? Finding that center by folding it in half, and then I'm just going to mark on the inside of the leather where that center is. Okay? You can see my little mark right there. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing with this piece. You can measure it, or you can just fold it in half. Folding it's faster. When we build a bag, we build it from the middle out, and that way it makes sure that it, you know, like when we sew the gusset to the back, it's usually fine, but then we go to sew the front to the gusset, and if it starts out on this side, goes all the way around, and now you have an extra inch of material, your bag's going to be crooked, and it won't look right. So, no bueno. Alright, so now I have my centers. I'm going to take, and with the flat sides facing me, I'm going to clip my centers together. Bringing back out my clips here. I'm going to clip those two centers right up to each other. Alrighty. Now, I'll put another couple of clips on here as I go around the bag, and I'm just going to work my way each direction. I'll work my way this way and go all the way to the top, then I'll come back and I'll work my way this way and go all the way to the top, and that will ensure that everything is centered. Now when you come around a corner, you got to stretch it a little, okay? And that's why this Kodiak is perfect for what we're doing, because it does stretch. So I'm just going to kind of stretch that area right there on the edge so that this piece can be up, and these two pieces, let me turn it so you can see it better. Alright, so that when I do this, this piece can be up, and these pieces can be right up against each other. Just like that. And I'm just, especially in the corners, I'm putting lots of clips, because there's nothing wrong with holding it too tight. Okay? You can double-sided tape this, I just usually don't. The clips will hold it firmly as long as I put them in the right spots. Now I did put a piece of tape here, so I'll go ahead and take the backing off of it. I'll lay that down across it. And when I sew this, I've got to be very cognizant that it's going to get thicker right there. Not necessarily because it's a stitch length issue, just because I need to make sure that the sewing machine walks over that area. Okay, so that's how we're going to do a corner. And then we're just going to clip this sucker together all the way to the top. I usually put a clip every 3 inches or so, otherwise I'll get a big bubble in there somewhere, and that's not cool. Just like that. Alright, now we're going to come over here and we're going to walk those clips around the other side of the bag. Okay, so again, I'm going to kind of pre-stretch the corner of this gusset as I go around. That'll help it to do what it needs so that I can sew those two pieces together nice and flat. More clips. Okay. All right, take that tape off there. Alright, now remember we've got like this big clip under here, or this, well on this side it's a D-ring. You can't let that create a bubble here. You've got to keep these edges flat with each other so that they'll come out right when you sew them. It's hard to sew a bubble into one of these seams and make it look right, so we just won't do it. There we go. So now we're going to sew this. Okay, we're going to start right here and we'll just sew down all the way around up to here, and that's going to be it. We're going to have the back sewn to the front. We are going to use a different sewing machine. We don't necessarily have to. This is still flat work. We could do this on the Class 18 that we've been using, but I absolutely love my Class 26 and I want to show it off, and I want you to see the difference between a cylinder arm sewing machine and a flatbed sewing machine. Flatbed sewing machines are what we have been using, the Class 18. It's got a very flat table on it. You can run stuff through it. The cylinder arm machine is stuff that where you can put things onto a curve and things like that, because the arm of the machine is like that instead of a big flat table. The cool thing about the Class 26 is you can get what they call the work platform, which basically turns it into a flatbed type machine. That's why I love that machine so much, is because it's versatile enough to be used either way, as opposed to a machine like the Class 18. While it's a great machine, it's limited in its capabilities that it's only a flatbed machine. So if I could only have one of the two, it would be the one with the cylinder arm. Just putting that out there. So I'm going to pause the camera. I got to move some machines around so I can get a better view here, and we'll get to stitching this bag together. Alrighty, so here we are in front of our Class 26 sewing machine. I love this thing. My favorite. I'm going to set the camera up over here towards the end so that you can see what we're actually doing with it. Check my bobbin, make sure we got enough to do the business we need to do here. I put my brown thread over on this machine now, so it is ready to go. And we're going to get to stitching. Now, when we stitch this, if you want, you can move all your clips out a little bit, and then you can just sew right down inside of them and not have to worry about taking them off while you go. You don't have to, but it is a viable option to do. But again, I want to stress that when we sew this, we need to keep our stitch line, you know, a good ½ inch or more inside from the edge of the bag. All right, we have plenty of room to sew this thing down without trying to get all up on the edge where we're going to miss a layer. So I'm going to start with a back stitch way up here at the top, and then start running forward with it. Oops. There we go. There we go. All right, and we're just going to start the stitching, and we're going to twist this bag around as we go. And this is what I was talking about. If you pull your clips out towards the edge a little bit, you can just stitch right around them and not even have to worry about them. I will say this, as you're using a cylinder arm machine, hold your project back here kind of flat out, because if you just let it droop down like that and you sew it, then your entire bag will be sewn in a curve. Okay, but if you hold it out here, it doesn't matter what happens on the back side of the machine, that's already sewn up. What matters is out here before it's sewn together. Okay, I'm going to pull this clip because that's where we're getting to the thick part here. Climbed up over that thicker area where that triangle is in between those layers. And here we go. Now the next tricky part is down here in this corner. Okay, when you get to a corner, very important to go slow and just sew those sides together without sewing any kind of bubble or anything like that in it. You know, so as it sews together, I'm going to pull up back here where we've already sewn so that it takes the bubble that it's trying to sew into the corner out. Pull this out a little bit. Okay, so we're past that first corner. Now we're just going to stitch along. Once we get to this area right here, we've got to climb up over that seam. So I'm just going to use my presser foot and pick it up over it there and keep on trucking. And anywhere I've taken a clip off, I've got to make sure that those edges are still lined up. Okay, so here we are at the other corner, and I've got to kind of keep it straight here. I'll lift up behind me and get that bubble out of there so I don't sew it into it. Can be challenging sometimes, like right now. There we go. All right. Now we're on the home stretch. We're just going to sew up this other side here, making sure we keep it straight. Now, I've said it in other parts of this video, you can hand sew this bag. There's not a problem in the world with it, but there's a lot of sewing to do. So okay, we're going to go all the way to the top of the main bag body, not the top of the gusset piece. and then we'll do our back stitch. So there we are. I'm going to pause the camera, and when we come back, we'll be at the desk. All right, here we are. I haven't done anything other than throw this onto the desk. I'm going to take all these clips off. And then we'll turn this right side out just to check and make sure we didn't miss anything. And then we will continue on. Alright, so when we turn these right side out, what we're looking for is anywhere that we might have not caught a layer into the sewing. Okay? And I'll take and kind of crease the corner a little bit, and that'll help to, keep the bag's form and shape right as we go. Now this Kodiak has some really nice pull up to it, so creasing those corners is nice. Alright, so there she is. The back of the bag is done. I'm going to pause the video here and kind of prepare for the next step, and then we'll keep on the stitching. Alright folks, I've done it before. I'll do it many more times, I can assure you, but I made a mistake. Remember this high-speed laptop pocket that we've been working on? That should have been sewn in there with that seam that we just did. Okay, so this piece should have been clipped to these two pieces as that was all sewn together. I screwed it up. Now I'm going to show you how we fix it. As opposed to cutting that entire seam off and redoing it and worrying that my original stitch holes would be exposed, it's a good thing we had that massive seam allowance, because what I'm going to do is clip this sucker to it just like this, now that I've turned it back inside out, and then I'm going to sew around on the outside of my original sewn seam. Okay, not on the inside of it, but on the outside of it. If you do it on the inside, when you turn the bag back out right side out, I promise you it will look bad. So if you do it on the outside, it will hold this pocket in, but yet no one will ever see it unless they look inside the bag and like study the seams. I mean, even just glancing in the bag, you wouldn't notice that we messed this up. So I'm gonna take, and you know what? I'm gonna double-sided tape it because it's gonna be flesh side to flesh side, so it's gonna tape well. So I'm gonna take and tape it to the bag, and we're gonna make it right. Again, this should have been in the original seam, so hopefully you're like me, you watch the video and then do a part, and then watch a video and do a part, and that way you didn't miss this. But it's not going to be an issue to do it the way we're doing it now either. Yeah. As Janie just brought up, hey, having a separate seam is, a little bit more rigidity and durability in the bag, so woohoo. That's why I did this. I wanted extra rigidity and durability, subconsciously, of course. Suddenly that video you done messed up, Ron, comes to mind. Okay. So So I'm going to remove the backing of the tape here, and I'll flip this sucker over and stick it to my seam. I want to start at the bottom corners to make sure that they line up. Then just go straight up the side of the bag, sticking it together. Stick it to the man. Alrighty. Take off the paper on the back of this piece. I'll stick it all the way across the bottom, and we'll go up the other side. This, folks, is what happens when you go in a hurry or you're thinking of other things while you do this and stuff like that. Here I am thinking about other aspects of business while I try to make a video, and I need to just stick with my video and let the other people that are that work here to worry about the other aspects worry about that. Okay, line up these corners again, stick it up the side, and then I'm going to turn the camera around, go back to the sewing machine, and stick this sucker on here. And then we will be none the wiser that this ever even happened. It'll be our little secret, yours and mine, okay? Alright, pausing the camera, and then I'll flip it around, we'll be at the sewing machine. Oh, there's Mara's butt, she's walking away. You got to see it, there you go. Alright, so as Janie just reminded me, you know, one of the things that we like to talk about is that, you know, the greatest leather workers aren't great at what they do because they're perfect. They're great at what they do because they know how to fix a mistake. And that's all we're doing here. We made a mistake, we're fixing it. That doesn't mean I'm one of the greatest leather workers. It just means I'm learning how to fix mistakes. So I'm going to start up here at the top. I'm going to back stitch first. And I'm going to go forward. And again, I'm making sure that this stitch line is on the outside of my original seam. Okay? Plenty of room, since we made such a nice wide stitch border. There's plenty of room to get this going. Not getting up over that triangle there. Let me use my presser foot here and make it happen. There we go. I lifted gently on the presser foot, and that way I could get up over that little triangle that's sewn into that seam. Go. Okay, and I've got that other seam where the gussets are sewn together. Got to make sure that pulls through the machine right here, and again on the other side. There we go. Now the only other obstacle is going to be the other little triangle. That shouldn't be too much of an issue at all. There we go. We're already up on the triangle. Okay, once we get it to the top here, we're just going to sew right up to the edge of it and then back stitch it again. And there it is. We made it work. Now when I turn this bag right side out again, that's going to be looking like it was always there. No problem. Alright, turned it right side out again. Laptop pocket's in there. It looks great. Life is good. Continue on. Okay, so there's what the back of it looks like. Very nice, very sleek. It doesn't have, you know, exposed stitching and stuff like that. It looks good. I'm happy with how it's turning out so far. Now, it's a little bit more of a challenge to put the front of the bag on because of these curves right here. Okay, but we're gonna do it. So we need to mark our center here again. Okay, as soon as I find my marker, I'm going to mark our center and my knuckle apparently, and then we'll mark our center on this as well. But since there's a couple of layers here, I'm actually going to measure to find my center instead of folding it in half, because folding it in half can cause a bubble, and a bubble will not make for an accurate measurement. There we go. Now, we have to make sure sew it inside out. Bags get sewn inside out so that when they turn right side out, you can't see all those ugly seams. Some do. And some bags are made with their seams exposed, and those are fine too, but that's not this style. So, here we go. And I will tell you, like the first couple of times I made this bag, I did all this stuff after I sewed the whole bag together, and oh my gosh, what was wrong with me? Alright, so we're going to make the two centers match up, and we're going to get to clipping. Now this one, the corners are going to be a little bit trickier just because we're holding all this bag together and everything, so I'm going to show you a little trick. Okay, we're going to get to meet another one of my favorite little tools. It's a tool that I think everyone should have. Okay, I'm going to pre-stretch those corner pieces on the gusset like we did on the front or the back. Alright, I'm going to clip this all together first, and then we're going to get out that special tool I was just telling you about. Once we've got it clipped. That clip is gone forever. It hit the floor, we may never see it again. Mostly because I don't want to pick it up, and I know little Myra's going to carry it away. Alright. Coming up to the end of our, or the top part here. Just a clipping, 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 clipping. And we're going to bend down around this fold here. I'm going to unzip this just so it's a little bit more flexible to follow the curvature of the gusset. Alright, flip it around, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Get to clipping. Okay, pre-stretch that corner piece of the gusset. One of the things that can make it easier, I'm going to reach in here and I'm going to undo the locks fasteners on the pocket and pull the pocket flap up. And that's going to help me to get around where that thing was just folded down, you know, because that's kind of close to my seam and it can make it more difficult to sew in there. Okay, almost there, folks. Clipping, clipping, clipping. But the more time I spend on this, and the straighter I get these edges, the nicer the bag will look. Alright, now, time to introduce you to my special little friend. Okay, these clips are nice to hold these corners, but the corners are where, you know, that machine's really looking at possibly being able to pull one of these layers out from under the others. So I've got this handy dandy little tool called a stapler. Love this thing. Available at Tandy. So I'm going to take, and in between my clips, I'm going to put a staple. Mind you, when I'm done sewing this, I will pull these staples out, and I'm also making sure that the staples are nowhere near the inside of that seam where my stitching is going to be, because there's no chance that I want to accidentally stitch through a staple. But these are not going to let go while I sew. So I could do it like Scarface, I guess, and be like, say hello to my little friend. But once I started using that stapler on these bags, I sure as heck had a lot better corners than before when I was trying to just use the clips. There we go. Clipped all my, or stapled all my corners in. Now I don't have to have clips on those. I'm ready to start stitching again. I'm going to pause it and we'll be back at the machine in just a second. Alright folks, here we are. We're at the sewing machine. Time to sew the front to the back, and then we can turn this beautiful bag right side out and we can marvel in its glory and be excited about it. So I'm going to kind of wad it up and hold it up under my, my arm here, because I've got to get this right here up under the sewing machine. Okay, and I'll take this top flap and I'll just fold it under here so it's not in my way. I'm going to try to get you a good angle, but I don't know that I can because I've got to hold the bag up. And I know that I keep threatening that one day I'm going to hire a cameraman and just get rid of the tripod, but so far nobody wants the job because my videos are too long. Alright, let me get this thing set up under here and then I'll let it back down so you can see. Get all the way in there to where my... Again, we're not trying to sew at the very, very edge of this bag. We've got a ton of seam allowance that we can use, and we will use. And that'll make it where mistakes are okay. Alright, so we're going to do some back stitching. And then we're going to go forward. Okay, and this is a difficult part where we have to go around this slight curve, but that curve is necessary to make this bag look the way that we want it to look. I went through many prototypes on this bag. Most of them never got past the phase of putting zippers on the front of it, because I just couldn't figure out a way that I liked them, that they looked sharp, that they were functional, and that they went in easily. One of them even had the zipper going all the way down and around the flap, and yeah, that was a real stupid idea because zippers don't do 90-degree turns too well, not even if they've got a heavy radius to them. Just moving these clips out a little bit so that I can leave them on while I sew around the area. There we go. Now I'm down to a flat area. I can sew nice and quick. I do need to make sure that my clips go up over the arm of the sewing machine okay. That is one of the risks of leaving them on there, is if they get caught on the end of my arm of my machine, then they're going to mess my stitching up. I need to check my bobbin too. I should have done that before I started this. My number one rule of sewing is always check your bobbin first, but I forgot. Okay, I'm down here where this front pocket is, so I need to just kind of hold those pieces together and make sure that the presser foot's going to go up over that area. There we go. Now we're going to continue down and around, and we're going to get to the corner where the staples are, and we're just going to keep trucking with it. Alright, we made it around that corner very easily with those staples. I should have done those on the other side too, but, you know, sometimes we just don't think of things every time. Kind of like putting a laptop pocket in a bag, you know? the other corner, and we're just going to go around it just as easily, all because we used a stapler. Have you seen my stapler? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We just keep on going. Almost to the end here, guys. Very exciting. It's always difficult to figure out where to hold the bag sometimes. Go. Almost there. Another half an inch. We're going to sew all the way to the top, and then we're going to backstitch. There we go. Alrighty. We're going to go back to the desk and we're going to turn this thing right side out. Alright folks, I pulled all the clips off, but I do need to pull these staples out because again, I don't want anyone to see that I put staples in this bag. So I'm going to take a pair of needle nose pliers. If that doesn't work, I'll grab a screwdriver and pull them, but they should come out fairly easily just pulling them. The Kodiak leather is good and strong, so I don't have to worry about like bending the prongs of the staples before pulling them. But if you were making this out of a leather that might be a little bit more fragile, you may want to bend the prongs straight and then pull it off. So there's one side. And here comes the other. Get these staples off my desk because I don't want them scratching up leather. And it's time to turn the bag right side out. And before I do that though, I'm going to trim off the ends of these zippers just a little bit. Again, when I do that, I'm just going to make sure that my scissors cut in between the brass pieces of the zipper chain and not try to cut it right through one, because that's a good way to ruin a good pair of scissors. Alright, so to turn this bag right side out, one of the first things I do is take off my ring so I don't scratch it all up. This is one of the reasons I keep my fingernails real short, is because I don't like scratching up leather, and when I'm on the insides of these bags, especially these oil tans that show, you know, distress and scratches and stuff so easily, I don't want to be the one to scratch it. That's up to the owner to distress it and all that. It should still look brand new when it leaves my shop to go somewhere else. Cut some. Alright, sorry, I had to cut some more threads there that were hanging out. I just reach in, I kind of grab a corner from the inside and I just pull it towards the top. one of the things I never do when I'm turning a bag right side out is stress a joint. Okay, like I'm not going to take and pull on the tops where they meet, because that's going to rip a seam. And I mean, that seam is very strong, and it's going to be plenty strong enough to do what it needs for the bag, but it still shouldn't have that kind of a stress on it. This right here is the reason I quit making leather footballs. I used to make tooled leather footballs, but God, I hated turning those things right side out. It'd be 2 hours of hand cramps and cussing and yeah.
Do you want me to bring you some pizza?
Please. Alright, here we go. Finally getting it. If this leather was made out of, or if this bag was made out of even a little bit thicker leather, this would be a lot more difficult. But this stuff, again, this is, in my opinion, this leather is just the perfect bag leather. So. Alright. Just pressing out my corners from the inside there. Okay. Looking good. I'm excited. Love it when I do this and I don't see a lot of mistakes. All right. Kind of creasing my corners and everything, give that bag some form and some shape. Go ahead and fold these back down and clip them down with their locks fasteners. This sucker's looking sharp. I'm kind of sad that I'm sending it over to Tandy so that they can take pictures. I mean, this one technically belongs to them. So, yeah, I really like it. Alright, so there she be, guys. That's the end of this video. The next video, we're going to do the flap, the shoulder straps, and the straps for the flap, and that's it. This bag is made. Super excited as how it's coming along. It looks great. Yeah, I may have to sneak myself one of these Kodiak sides and make myself one just like this, because I really like it. I like the stark brown. So, thank you very much for watching. Again, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to our channel. Have a great day.